Welcome back to the Just Fantasy Baseball podcast. My name is Rami, Lavi. That is Vince Damato. I hope everyone's enjoying their All-Star break, all the MLB All-Stars, and we got a special show for you. Because it's the All-Star break, we decided we're going to do things a little bit differently today. We're going to recap the first half. We're going to set up the second half, give you all the values, and also preview the trade deadline, which is coming up rapidly approaching right now, just under a couple weeks away from the trade deadline. So first, Vinny, how you doing, buddy?
Good. I'm excited to be back. Missed it. I miss baseball. You know, the week, it always feels like when it first hits, it's like, nice little week-long break. You know, I don't have to set my lineups every day. And then by the end of it, I'm like, I missed it. Like I'm itching to get back into it. So yeah, I'm ready to dive into some of the stuff. We dug up some of the preseason rankings that you and I did and found some really good calls and found some not so really good calls. So it's going to be fun to look at those today.
Yeah, that will be fun. And I will say this. I probably miss watching the games. I don't miss the daily Yankee discourse that we have. I mean, maybe that's part of living in sports media, living literally in sports media where WFAN, I mean, the daily discourse gets almost to a point where it's like nauseating. And I've gotten to the point where like I've actually softened my stance on the Yankees, and maybe I'm getting softer. They had one of the worst 6-week stretches that you could possibly have. And now I'm like, you know what? I don't know. The record's still pretty good. They're getting a reset here at the All-Star break. They have I think the 27th hardest, meaning so like the third or fourth easiest strength of schedule the rest of the way. Hey, who knows what happens? Maybe this team's not as broken as I think. They make some moves, but like I was getting so bogged down from like the daily discourse of baseball at WFAN every single day. So I enjoyed the break from baseball, but I'm also going to enjoy being back. The one thing that's killing me is in my league, the week, it was just extended. We added these 3 days this coming weekend onto the week prior to the All-Star game instead of adding the weekend onto the week after the All-Star game. I don't know why we did it that way. Yeah. And I'm up 9-1 in categories to my opponent, and I would have won 9-1. And now I'm worried that this weekend is going to kill me and I'm not going to win the week. So I am really biting my nails and crossing my fingers because I'm terrified. The categories are somewhat close, but I had a 9-1 victory in the bag. And then I look, I'm like, why does it say that there are 70 games yet to be played? What the hell is going on? There's a whole weekend left and I didn't know about it. So I'm kind of pissed about that.
That's too bad. The likelihood that it finishes 9-1 is not good, right?
No.
Something's going to happen. Yeah,
that's right. Exactly.
Yep. And as far as the Yankees, I imagine too, you're absolutely right. You mentioned it before. It just probably feels nauseating. And I imagine though, as long as you guys get in the playoffs, which it seems like you will, right? Knock on wood.
I mean, only a game back from Baltimore. It's not like, think about that last game. And I know we haven't talked since that last game, how that game ends, right? With Clay Holmes and Anthony Volpe and Alex Verdugo. The Yankees hold on and don't literally give that game away. They're in first place right now. Like after all is said and done, after all the crazy, they end with a sweep in Baltimore. But that's not what happened. It's part of what makes it's part of what makes that loss such a punch in the dick. But that's what it is.
Oh man, I'm excited. You want to dive into some of these values we got here?
Yeah, let's do it. All right, so we're gonna kick it off. So here's what we're doing. We gave a value to a lot of the guys before the season started, as we do. That's our job. And we were right about some things. We were wrong about some other things. So how about this? I'll let you grade yourself and then I'll grade myself. What do you think you were most right about, or what do you think you were most wrong about from your preseason rankings? We like to hold ourselves accountable, and I'm sure everyone listening, oh, you guys said this, and you guys, I'm sure, are holding us more accountable than we do, because if you're like me, I don't remember what I say the second after it comes out of my mouth. What did you say, and how's that working out for you, Vinny?
There's it's tough going back and looking at some of these, and then it's also exciting because you look and you're like, I can't believe that I had this guy ranked that highly, and what was I thinking? And then on the flip side, oh, hey, I found this diamond in the rough. And some of the I'll start with some of my wins. I had Vinny P as a great buy at a 170 ADP. He's currently the 10th best first baseman. Not anything crazy, but I'll take a little victory lap there. Third base, I absolutely nailed. I had Michael Garcia as a
Yes,
sleeper,
you're always big on him.
and I also had Matt Chapman as a
Mm.
best value, and he was going around pick 274, and he's currently the fourth best third baseman in baseball. So,
And that value
um,
could go up with a trade or go down with a trade.
yeah,
We'll get to that a little bit later.
yeah, absolutely. But also at third base, I missed on Noel V. Marte, but that's kind of a weird situation. Who sees, PEDs coming? I nailed Anthony Santander. I had him as my best value in the outfield, and he's currently the 11th best outfielder after being drafted as the 33rd. But we missed on some big dogs, right? Corbin Carroll, obviously, J-Rod, Acuna. That's been a big killer for a lot of my leagues. Some smaller guys too. I missed on Salvador Perez. I called him the worst value at
You did.
136, and he's currently the fourth best catcher. So I knew he had that in him, but I wasn't going to buy in. I'm fine with losing that one. Let's see. We also, I
And
think,
that's
both
one where
of
you're
us.
willing to take the L though, because it's like, hey, I'd rather get out a year soon than a year late. Now, who knows? I mean, next year you might say the same thing you said this year and you'll be right. You know what I mean? Because he is an older catcher. They were showing the clip from 2013 of Mariano Rivera. I was going around on like New York sports media. He won the MVP of the All-Star game at Citi Field. And in the clip, the catcher who runs out to greet him after he throws the inning is Salvador Perez. It's crazy. I mean, that dude's been an all-star that's 11 years ago. So, yeah, that's remarkable. I'm not shocked that you'd think that, like, hey, this guy may be getting up there in age, might be on the back nine.
Yeah. And I think the last big surprise that I have here is just we were absolutely kind of killed on first base. The top three first basemen were not in either of our top eight rankings. Josh Naylor, Christian Walker, and Spencer Steer. Just it's kind of been a weird position, right? We had Matt Olson up there, we had Pete Alonso, we had Vladdy up there, and what happened? Tristan Casas hurt. I mean, just a variety of things have gone wrong at first base. Just kind of all over the board. A lot of good things, a lot of bad things for every different position. I nailed Ketel Marte too. I had him as the best value. So some pats on the back, some not so good ones. But what about you?
It's funny that you can't get fantasy points for being a great broadcaster because Tristan Casas would be awesome. He'd be the number one. He's such a good sideline reporter. I don't know if you've seen any of those clips.
I missed it. No.
So he was on Sunday Night Baseball. He did like the on-field interview, or I guess it wasn't on field because he wasn't on the field. I think he was hurt, but he did like that in-game interview on Sunday Night Baseball, and he was like just super entertaining. And then I saw Nesson, the Red Sox network, started using him like for post-game interviews on the sideline. Like he's like asking, and they look like they're having fun. Obviously, the Red Sox were surging towards the end of the first half. So we'll see about that. And yes, I think what's funny, and I'll say this, as far as my and preseason, we had the whole back and forth. We made such a big deal over the Alonso and Olsen thing, and they both stink. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
Like we made such a big deal over it. And my God, I mean, they stink. So I'll take the L on both of them. I didn't think Olsen would be this bad. I'm not even going to take a victory on that because I didn't think he'd be this bad. I told you I just didn't love his value for where he was. And of course, that changes with their lineup changing. And of course, they haven't been one of the better, they've been scuffling a little bit lately as well. So, with Atlanta and their lineup not being the same, that's that situation. The Mets is a weirder situation because their lineup's great and Pete's right in the middle of it. And it feels like he has maybe the quietest 18 home runs. And I know with fantasy baseball, it doesn't matter. Get the numbers however you get them. But like from a Mets fan perspective, watch the games. You're like, where the hell is Pete? And then you look at the numbers, like the numbers are not as bad as he's playing. Like he's playing worse than his numbers and his numbers are bad. So, maybe he'll have a turnaround in the second half. Where else I'm going to take an L is this wasn't a preseason ranking, but Garrett Crochet, I think the first few weeks, I kept telling you, sell this guy. This is fake. What the hell? Come on. Yeah, there's no way he's going to keep it up. The dude has kept it up, a 3.02 ERA, 0.95 whip, 107 innings, 150 strikeouts. The dude has been fantastic. And you look at the last month, it's been better than his season average, like a 2.55 ERA over the last month, 34 strikeouts in 24 innings. And who knows if he does ultimately get moved. We'll see how the White Sox want to deal with that. He's another guy who has never really thrown this many innings. Could he get moved to the bullpen? What happens there? If he gets moved to the bullpen, he becomes one of the best closers in baseball potentially for a team. So that's a weird situation where I was right. And thanks for the assist on this one, because I'm so proud of these two picks. Teoscar Hernandez, home run derby winner, Teoscar Hernandez. Right? I got that right. Yeah, he won the home run derby. You looked at me. I was like, wait, am I saying something wrong?
No,
No,
sorry.
yeah, he won the home run derby. I had him and I had Brandon Nimmo as my two best value plays in the outfield. And you know how much I've talked about Brandon Nimmo. What's upsetting for me is I don't think I have either one. Maybe I have Nimmo in our league, but I don't have any Teoscar Hernandez. And I wanted both of those guys. Do you have their preseason ADP up?
I can find it if you talk for 2 seconds.
Yeah, my point is that those guys were not top in the league, when we're talking about outfielders, and they've performed as top outfielders in the league. They've well outperformed what we expected for both of those guys. Obviously, for, you don't get any points again for winning the home run derby, but, considering what you expected of Teoscar Hernandez. And then this is what I said before the season. He's going to be right in the middle of that Dodgers lineup. He's always good. And what has he been? The third or fourth, like with Mookie out, he's been probably the third best hitter in that lineup, right behind Freddie and Ohtani. So he's getting all those RBI opportunities, and he's been awesome this year. And, we didn't know this coming into the year, but in a league where a year where everyone's been searching for offense, and I know it's picked up the offense a little bit. I talked about it last episode. The offense has picked up the last few weeks, but still people are searching for offense. These are guys who have been giving you consistent offense all year.
Yeah, and I did find the rankings. So Teoscar was the 29th outfielder with an ADP of 116. And Nimmo was the 43rd outfielder with an ADP of 187. So both of those guys returning great value.
Well above. They're playing well above that. All right. So now we will give you our buy low and sell high candidates, who you should buy low on and who you should sell high on for the remainder of the season. So who do you have for your buy low and sell high?
So I'll mention two real quick because I just could not leave this guy off the list. Pablo Lopez. If you can get any sort of discount on Pablo Lopez, this feels like free candy. Some people, and including myself, I think are tired of waiting. It's like, okay, people have been telling us this. What's happening? I don't believe it. Everything under the hood tells me he is not this kind of pitcher. He's not a 5 ERA pitcher. And even worst case scenario, he's still getting you strikeouts. So Pablo Lopez is a guy I am absolutely buying in for the second half of the season. And this other one is O'Neal Cruz. His underlying metrics are absolutely mouthwatering. He is 96th percentile or better in hard hit percentage, barrel percentage, average exit velocity, and bat speed, which I know bat speed, does that really mean anything right now? No, but he's hitting the ball extremely hard. He's barreling it up. He's seeing it well. He still strikes out a little bit too much. I'm not going to deny that. But with the power that he brings to the table and the speed he brings to the table, I mean, we could be looking at a blow-up second half of the season. I am absolutely buying O'Neal Cruz, and there's no way his price is what it was preseason drafts and everything like that. So you should be able to get a good deal on him.
So mine is very tied to, it's very tied to the trade deadline, which we're coming up in a second. We're going to do something interesting where we look at how people's values are going to trade based on the trade deadline. But I'll give you one that I think is regardless of the trade deadline. I would still buy low if you can on Pete Alonso. I think once the deadline passes, he's going to start to hit. Either way, whether he gets moved, whether he stays with the Mets, I think that more than the contract, everyone talks about the contract with Pete Alonso, the contract's looming over him, the contract year. I think more than anything, actually, I think it's the trade deadline. The idea of maybe being moved in season. I know how much he loves New York and his ties to New York. I know about his charity and his wife and everything they do here. I know personally, I've met them. I've been at their events. So, I think he cares a lot about New York. I don't know if he wants to be here forever. I think that's going through his mind, but I think he wants to be the one to make that decision. And the idea of that decision being taken out of his hands at a trade deadline, I don't think he wants that. And I think the trade deadline is hanging over his head. And I think if you can get someone, hey, I can buy low a little bit on Pete Alonso stock. because he's been scuffling because of the trade deadline. I think you're going to still get August and September, 2 full months of him giving you really great production after the deadline passes.
Yeah, I think that's a good call out. It'll be sad to see one way or another because
whatever it is, yeah. But whatever happens, I think it'll just be good for him.
Yeah. What would you put the percentage on that next year, like the rest of the season and next year, he is in the Mets uniform?
I think that, I mean, they're tied to each other, right? I think if he finishes out the season as a Met, I think they have to re-sign him. I don't think you're going to let him walk for nothing. If they determine that he's not worth the long-term contract, then they should trade him. And I think ultimately I would trade him. I think putting Vientos at first and allocating that money elsewhere, whether it's a starting pitcher or whether it's even a Juan Soto in the offseason, I think that's a better move for the Mets. And so if you're Steve Cohen, I want to go push all my chips on a Juan Soto. I love you, Pete, but I think the stance of the fan base on Pete has changed over the last 2 months, where prior to this season, everyone would have told you, you can't lose Pete. You can't lose Pete. That's the face of the franchise. That's who everyone loves. I think seeing how well this team has played without his contribution, I think maybe the fan base has shifted to, oh, it's Lindor's team. Oh, it's Nimmo's team. I get that, So I think the fan base would be more accepting at this point of Pete being traded. I don't know how accepting they'd be if they're in the thick of a playoff run like they are right now. But if he's traded to improve the team, if he's traded not for prospects, but for bullpen help that can help you now, then I think fans would look at that. Now, what's weird is and I've thought about this, I don't know what the value of this is. You can't place it. Even without his production, what is his value in the lineup? Having just another guy that you have to be careful pitching to in the middle of the lineup, like how much does that affect the lineup? I don't know the answer to that question. I don't know if having him there, whether he's producing or not, makes a big difference. I don't know how the Mets look at that. If I had to make a prediction, I think he stays long term.
Okay. I hope so. Love seeing in a Mets uniform. He looks happy there, right? He always has, at least. Maybe,
yeah. And even if he's not, I think also part of that is his value has gone down so much that I think maybe Steve Cohen looks at the contract and like, well, now if I could get you for like 5 years, $100 million instead of whatever the contract goes before that, then that's a much more feasible deal. And your value going down is actually good for ultimately him staying in New York, right? Because they're not going to trade him for nothing. So I think his value dropping a little bit over the last year actually does help his case to stay in New York. So maybe he's smarter than the rest of us. Maybe he's playing poorly on purpose.
Yeah, go tell him that. See what he says.
Exactly. Yeah. What is your sell high?
My sell high is more based on name value, not necessarily that this player is having an awful year. I think it's just, below average, what we were expecting from them. And that's Ozzie Albies, second baseman for the Atlanta Braves. It's not that I expect him to regress or anything like that. I simply expect his numbers to kind of stay where they're at, stay afloat. Maybe he hits 2020, but he's at 258 average, right? He's not killing the baseball, and nothing underlying says he's about to explode. I think this is one of those guys you could probably get a top 75 player in return at least for Ozzie Albies, maybe even approach top 50. And there's no way he's going to return that value, in my opinion, unless you are desperate for a second baseman and you're absolutely holding on to him. Ozzie Albies is a guy that I would be looking to try to ship off again, just on name value alone. I would be much more willing to buy into other Atlanta Brave players such as Austin Riley or Matt Olson than I would be on Ozzie Albies.
All right. This one is also kind of tied into the trade deadline. You have a 2-week window now. Trade Craig Kimbrel. I don't believe, as good as he's been the last month, I don't believe the Orioles are going to let him continue to be their closer. I really don't. I don't see a way that the Orioles, with all the prospects they have, with how much they have invested in this season, with how good this season has gone, I think they see that last game of the year, Ben Rice hitting that 3-run homer off of him. I know ultimately they win the game. And I'm rooting for Craig Kimbrel right now because I want him to remain the closer so that in the playoffs, he is the closer so that, say the Yankees face him, I'd much rather face Craig Kimbrel than, say, Mason Miller. Yeah. But I don't see the Orioles being dumb enough to go into a postseason or a stretch run with Craig Kimbrel as their closer. I just don't see it. They're going to trade for a closer, no matter who it is, even if it's Tanner Scott or David Robertson. It may not be Mason Miller. They're going to trade for a closer. Get out on Craig Kimbrel right now. Sell him for whatever. Just convince your league mate, hey, look at all these saves. He's going to be the closer all year. I don't know. You have 2 weeks. Do it, because in 2 weeks, the Orioles are going to have a new closer.
It's a good one. Yeah, I'm a fan of it. I'm not sure what's going to happen, but we've seen him kind of implode before, so I can understand it.
I have one last thing I wanted to get to, and it's related to our best worst value of the season before we started the season.
Sure.
I think I said Carlos Rodon was undraftable, and I was right. So,
yeah, I didn't write that one down for you. We both kind of whiffed a little bit on pitching. I had a best value of Christian Javier and Aaron Savali, but that
I
has not
probably
worked
told you
out.
that I like Zach Wheeler the best. That's probably what I said, and he is the best.
We did nail you. Yeah, so I did write down we avoided Rodon and Snell. And then on the prospect report, I called out Jared Jones, AJ Smith-Shawver, and Gavin Stone. So
What about
three
Paul
hits
Skeens?
there. I don't know why I didn't put him on there. Maybe
I
I
mean,
felt like
who
it was
knew that he was
too
going to come up so
chalk.
soon? Yeah.
That's also true too. I didn't expect. Nobody expected this, right? I mean, this is just.
I mean, he was in
territory.
college last year. He started the All-Star game for the NL. It's nuts.
Yeah.
All right. So how do you want to do this? I have a bunch of names over here
Sure.
that are going to be affected by the trade deadline, either positively or negatively. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 names. So we could just go back and forth. I don't know how many names you have.
Well, I actually misunderstood when you said trade deadline. I kind of misunderstood the.
Okay. So how did you understand it?
What I understood was I think this guy's going to get traded and his value is going to shift. I guess I just looked at kind of like another buy low. I like what you did though. Maybe I'll just say my guy and then we'll go back.
That's fine. Yeah, no, but that's
okay.
the point. That's the point of this.
Yeah.
Either a guy who's going to get traded or is not going to get traded, and how his value changes based on that. So,
sure. So
yeah,
my
and
guy
that's explaining it to you and everyone at the same time. That's what this is. That's how I see this. So, tell me who is going to get traded and how their value is going to shift because of it.
It should be at least Brent Rooker. I think he'll get traded, and I think his value is going to skyrocket. Not only is his power being zapped at the Coliseum, right? The Coliseum's a terrible hitter's park. If he goes to a contender and he's hitting in the middle of the lineup, I mean, this is Teoscar Hernandez, but, on steroids, depending on where he goes, right? A lot of teams could use an extra outfield bat. He's just got so much power. He's got massive, massive raw power, and he's hitting for average. And I don't think it's a fluke. Everything underlying shows that, this is legit. So the Oakland A's are going to want to try to sell whatever value they can. I'm not sure if they'll sell Mason Miller yet. We'll see. Could even see Lawrence Butler being a trade target. But Brent Rooker probably on the outs, and his value is just going to skyrocket.
Yeah, I like that one. I have one that I think he's going to get traded, and I think his value will go down. I think right now he's viewed as a guy that, his value's for sure going to go up because he can get traded to a good team, and I don't see him being a major part, and that's Jazz Chisholm. They started playing him more at second base because they want to up his value. They want to trade him. Obviously, the Marlins do. His numbers are fine this year. I see him as the type of guy who gets moved and kind of just has a meh. Like, oh, wow, we really overvalued this guy in a trade. And people would be like, oh, he's getting traded to the Yankees. He's going to be a middle of that lineup now. He's going to score a ton of runs, and then he's going to disappoint. Or he gets traded to whoever, the Mariners, and then he's going to disappoint. So I think Jazz Chisholm Jr. is going to get traded, but I don't think that will. And if he doesn't get traded, I think he'll bottom out anyway. So I think his value, one way or another, is going to go down the rest of the way.
Okay. I did see another one that I thought of was Luis Robert. I don't know if he's on your list at all, but Luis Robert absolutely could get traded.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I think it's likely, but if he does, I don't think that's in the same boat as Jazz. I think Luis Robert's value does increase, but I agree with you. Jazz feels like the kind of player that I don't know how he's going to perform in a new environment, right?
Exactly.
And there's always that injury that's kind of looming over. He's never really been healthy, so I think that's a good call out. And Luis Robert, he also has a little bit of an injury concern, but I think when healthy, I mean, I think he's just got he's got a higher ceiling than Jazz, and he's shown a little bit more health than Jazz. So we'll see. I would like to see Luis Robert move to a contender because it's fun to watch him play.
Yeah, I definitely do. There's another guy who is in trade talks now, position eligible, first, second, and third base. He's mostly a third baseman, and I think he's playing really well. But you know what happens when you take guys out of Tampa? And Isaac Paredes, or Isak Paredes, who's been having an awesome year and maybe an under-the-radar year so far. Although last year his numbers were just as good as this year. If you look at the full season, he had 31 home runs last year. He's on pace for 30 home runs this year. He had 98 RBIs, on pace for 90 RBIs this year. You know, so the numbers are similar, and you think you put him in a better lineup, he'll be better. But I think he's also a guy who kind of like, there's some magic in the water in Tampa. I don't know what it is. So I went this way. I have two other guys who I think their values will go up from a trade. But these are two guys who I think, if Paredes stays in Tampa, and this is a good thing here, where like, hey, monitor the trade situation. If he stays in Tampa, I like him. I like his value the rest of the way. Whereas it's weird if he goes to a better team, I feel like his value will go down. So I don't know why, but that's just how I feel about Isak Paredes. I think, you know, guys perform in Tampa for some reason, and you put him in a different lineup. Maybe you send him to Boston or Baltimore and put him in the middle of that lineup. I still don't think his value is going to go up.
He may just have a hard time finding playing time. Like he feels like a fringe guy, right? You know,
right? Exactly. So he could end up going to the Yankees, and they're still kind of platooning him with, you know, Ben Rice and DJ LeMahieu. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. Who are your two guys? That,
all right. So my two guys, I think this is one you can get him off waivers. So this guy is going to get traded. I'll tell you where he's going to get traded. This guy is going to get traded from the Miami Marlins to the Seattle Mariners, and he's going to be batting fourth in their lineup. And not only is his lot, who are you?
Go ahead. I was Jake Berger.
Nope.
Oh, no.
Not only is his value going to go up, the value of everyone in this is the bopper that they're looking for. I'm telling you, Julio Rodriguez's value is going to go up. It's Josh Bell. He's going to be hitting left-handed. I guess he's also a right-hander. He's switch, right? But I just see him hitting those left-handed bombs to that little, it's not really a short porch-ish type thing in Seattle, but I could just see him in a playoff run hitting bombs. So I like Josh Bell. I think, you know, maybe don't pick him up yet because but if he gets traded to Seattle and he's in the middle of that lineup, Seattle's not the type of team that I see making like a huge trade where they're giving up a ton of prospects, but this is the type of guy where they need bats, so they don't want to go spring for like the biggest name. Let's go get a guy who's on a little bit on the lower end, but has shown that he could have some massive power in his career. I think all of a sudden, you know, he's got 9 home runs on the year. You could see him. He had 22 last year. You could see him double that.
I think I may struggle with seeing Josh Bell get moved, and I think it would be smart of the Marlins to try to move him, but he does have $16.5 million that he's owed this year, which feels like kind of a lot of money for Josh Bell. So,
it is. It for sure is. But that's also why it wouldn't cost a ton of prospects. So if you're a team like Seattle and their pitching rotation, right, they're all young and under control for the next few years. So why should I give up? Why should I give up a ton of prospects for this year when it feels like, hey, maybe Houston's on the way out, right? Maybe their window's ending a little bit, our window's opening a little bit. Let's try and move some pieces for this year and compete, but let's really look at the next 3 to 5 years to compete. So let's not trade away too much capital. Let's just, you know, try for this year. And so get like a fringe guy like that, where as Jake Berger, like you said, like you'd have to give up more for. Luis Robert, you'd have to give up more for. I don't think they want to do that. I think they want to make like a fringe move to try and improve, try and win this year, but really maintain the window that they have with Wu and all those guys, you know, Gilbert and those guys the next few years.
Okay. All right. Who's your last
And then
one?
the last one was who I think also, you know, I've been on him all year, and he's been one of my guys that I could take the L on. Hasn't been good. I still think he's going to get traded as a utility guy and be awesome somewhere, and that's Thairo Estrada. I don't know where he gets moved to, but can't you see him being in the thick of a race somewhere, playing second, third, shortstop, just moving around the infield? I think he's played in the outfield a little bit at times in his career too. I might be wrong about that. I feel like he could just play everywhere, so he'll find playing time. And, you know, it's weird baseball now. Like, the lineups don't stay the same every day. So even if he gets traded as a utility guy, I think he's going to find playing time in a lineup somewhere. He's been awful this year. In the last month, he has a 118 on base in the last month, 5 for his last 50 hitting. That's awful. Terrible season, especially considering coming off of last year where he was really solid. I think he's going to have a big second half. I think he gets moved, and the heat of a playoff race kind of awakens him, and he plays really well.
Okay.
All right. So you don't have anyone else?
No. Let's move on.
Let's do our first half MVPs. This is our MVP of the entire first half of the season. Who's your MVP?
It's got to be the guy. We haven't talked about him in a while, but it's got to be Elly De La Cruz. I don't know how it's not. I mean, the guy's on pace for a 30-80 season. Like, that's unbelievable.
Ridiculous. He loves stealing bases.
Yeah, and he's going to score 100, 120 runs, 110 runs, approach 100 RBIs. Like, the guy's a first-round pick next year. He absolutely is. He's my MVP. There's not much more to say about him other than just if you took the gamble on him, you were absolutely correct to do so. I missed him in a lot of redrafts because I wasn't willing to pay the price, but I got him in a lot of dynasty leagues, and he's been an absolute MVP for me. So thank you, Elly De La Cruz, and hope that second half goes well for you. He single-handedly, he could be the only player on your team that has speed, and you could still be, top half of the league in steals.
Yeah, so mine is this. I think this is a great pick as well, but Tariq Skubal, who, I mean, again, not a guy who was seen as, I don't know where you had him ranked.
I had him as an ace or top 5 pitcher.
Yeah, but I don't know if everyone had him right there. Like, and the value he's given you, and under the radar too, like on a Detroit team that's bad, he has 10 wins if you're in a win league, 140 strikeouts, 116 innings. His numbers are actually better than the Crochet numbers I just read. And I feel like we've talked more, and people in general have talked more about Crochet. Tariq Skubal has been arguably the best pitcher in baseball this year. 2.41 ERA, 0.88 whip. Like, this guy has been ridiculous. And he's another name that people are like, hey, team could get moved, which is crazy. I wouldn't move him if I were Detroit. So I've seen his name. Like I saw the rumors Andy Martino's writing the Yankees would give up Spencer Jones in a Tariq Skubal trade. Yeah, because it's freaking Tariq Skubal. He's that good. So he is my MVP of the first half. Honorable mention Christian Walker, who's been awesome. I know, we mentioned earlier that he wasn't highest on our ranking for preseason first baseman. He's been awesome. But I don't think his numbers compare to what Tariq Skubal relatively has done. Skubal's been awesome.
Yeah, Walker's a good guy. I think he was ranked 9th on my first baseman. And I guess another honorable mention, Paul Skeens. Like,
oh yeah,
man, we just weren't expecting that.
Unbelievable. But again, still the number's a little bit less because, he hasn't been up for as long, but in the time he's been up, he's been probably the best pitcher in baseball. So unbelievable.
Yeah.
All right. And now we have a lock for the second half. One guy who I know it's more than, we're probably 2/3 done, especially when you consider playoffs, but it's halftime. It's the All-Star break. Who is your absolute lock? Who is going to kill it in the second half?
I took this as I'm locking him in based on where his value's at now. I think he's only going up, and I think he absolutely has the potential to kill it. And that's Aaron Savali. I was all over him in the preseason. His ADP was past 200, and I thought, wow, that's the best value you're going to get on any pitcher in the draft. And clearly not. He really came out and struggled this year in Tampa. But the reason why he absolutely seems like a lock for me is he went from one phenomenal pitching organization to another in Milwaukee. And, you look at his last start before the All-Star break, his second start with Milwaukee, 6 innings pitched, 1 earned run, 6 strikeouts. First time he's thrown 6 innings in quite a few starts. I think that there's more to unlock in him that Tampa unlocked last year a bit. We saw it last year. I don't think he is this type of pitcher. I don't think he's as bad as he's been in the first half. And I think that there's so much more to him that he's going to find again in Milwaukee. Again, Milwaukee is a great pitching org, and they're just a smart organization overall. So I'm betting on the organization. I'm betting on Savali again. And I think you can get him for an extremely cheap price right now.
Yeah, that's a good call. Mine is someone who we've talked about being disappointing so far this year, and I think he's been heating up the last few weeks, 386 on base in his last 2 weeks. And I think he's the type of guy, and I've heard this from people who know him and people who have worked with the organization. The Astros know that they kind of are on cruise control in the regular season. They're about to turn it up. And Alex Bregman is going to have an awesome second half. Going into free agency, he's not getting traded. He's staying in Houston, and he's going to have a monster second half with the Astros because they are going to win that division. Mark my word right now. They're going to win that division. They're going to be back in the playoffs. They can cruise through the first half and pretend, oh, this is not a big deal, blah, blah, blah. When they need to turn it on, they have championship pedigree. They're going to turn it on, and Alex Bregman is going to have a monster. He's going to be leading that team to the division title in the second half of the season. He's going to have a huge second half, so he is my lock for the second half.
Absolutely love it. Bregman was the guy we called a buy low a few weeks ago, and
yeah, exactly.
Been scorching ever
with
since.
Yep, exactly. So you might not be a buy low candidate anymore because he's been hot since we talked about him. But yeah, he is definitely going to have a huge second half. So if you have nothing else, that's going to do it. We wrap up the All-Star break. We'll be back, I guess, Sunday to discuss, the more usual things. I don't know what we'll recap. We'll talk about some of the weekend headlines and stuff like that. But just, wanted a little reset, All-Star break. I appreciate you doing this, and we'll do it again soon. All right.
Yeah. See you Sunday, Rami.
All right. See ya.